Welcome to Mighty Married Moms. Join us at our kitchen table twice a week as the Mighty Married Moms, Debbie, Linda, Wendy,
invite spectacular guests to weigh in on staying sexy, vibrant, and healthy,
building marriages with soul-satisfying connection, raising happy, healthy, successful kids. Conversations with Mighty Married Moms will bring you closer to the life you really want. Episode 81. Today's show is brought to you by Deborah C. Owen, Family and Life Coach at youcanraisegreatkids.com. If you are tired of worrying about the choices your kid is making, or tired of the stress of constantly arguing with your kids, or them arguing with each other, then don't wait until you are truly desperate. Get the help you and your family need and deserve today. Connect with your kids with calm compassion. Call Deborah Owen at 978-835-4354. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Mighty Married Moms. Today, we get the privilege of speaking with Stephanie O'Day, who is a New York Times bestselling author, slow cooking expert, and a mother of 3. Stephanie lives in the San Francisco Bay Area and has been married to her high school sweetheart for 17 years. That's great. Congratulations. Wow. Yeah. In 2008, Stephanie made a New Year's resolution to use her crockpot slow cooker every day for a year and write about it online.
That's awesome.
And since meeting that challenge, she's published 4 slow cooker cookbooks and a time management book for moms called Totally Together, Shortcuts to an Organized Life. And we're going to get to both of those in our conversation. And you can find out more about her on her website, stephanieoday.com. And she also is on Facebook. So Stephanie, thank you for being with us today. It's great to have you.
Thank you for including me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, great. Well, let's just start out with the cooking part first.
Yes.
You have several books about slow cooking. Oh, actually, no. Let's have you tell us a little bit. Yeah, a little bit about the cooking every day.
Well, it's funny. I apologize for the watery eyes. I'm in San Francisco, and with all of the forest fires happening up north, all of the smoke has blown into the Bay Area this morning, and so my allergies are wonky. So I promise I'm not crying. We're not having an Oprah moment quite yet. I'm just okay. I'm just a little watery. So 2008, I started a blog, and I decided to write online about my crockpot, mostly because I wanted to find a legitimate way to work from home. I have 3 children. I had 2 at the time, and I had to quickly quit my job because my youngest at the time was getting sick. We found out later down the road that she had celiac, but this was back in 2006, 2007, and so celiac and gluten intolerance was nowhere near as prevalent and mainstream as it is now. So I didn't know, and of course my poor little baby's getting sick, and I'm feeding her saltines and Cheerios, trying to give her bland food and essentially making her more sick. But anyway, she's completely fine now, healthy. But because I quit so quickly, and because we live in the San Francisco area, it's expensive. I needed to replace that income. So I started writing online, and I liked the idea of a cooking blog because it was not focused on family. I didn't want to put pictures of the kids up. I didn't want to put their names and that type of thing. So that's how it started. And then it really just sort of took off because I decided to think of new recipes rather than the tried and true. We already know what pot roast with cream of mushroom soup and Lipton onion seasoning tastes like. So I wanted to see if there were new uses. So I learned how to make yogurt. I learned how to make falafel. I tried hard-boiling eggs. I would not recommend that. That did not work out well. But out of the year, I ended up it was a leap year, so there are 366 days, but 300 or so of the recipes were quite good. And I was able to publish that first cookbook with Hyperion, and it spent 6 weeks on the New York Times bestsellers list, which
great job
for a suburban mom who works in her slippers was a very, very cool thing. So I'm quite fortunate and happy that this is my new life. And
that's exciting. What a great story. I love it.
Inspiring.
I love it.
So your name is Stephanie. We have to figure out who's a very famous Stephanie so we can have that same movie, Julia and Julia. Didn't that woman start out writing a blog a day?
That's right.
So I don't know if I have as much drama as that lady.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
It's better that way. It's right.
Meryl Streep, I can see it all.
Well, listen, why don't you tell us a little bit more about the books and, a couple of, great cooking tips for families. What can you share about that?
Well, I've always been kind of a time management and self-help junkie. Once I got out of college, I started reading everything I could possibly get my hands on, personal development and self-help. And I've always sort of been the kind of person where I'm trying to tweak things a tiny bit here and there to make things run better. So I liked the idea of meal planning. And once I had children, I realized, wow, the best way that we can have kind of a peaceful evening is if I plan my meals. And the best way to do that really is to dump it all in the morning, 7 a.m. I'm still highly caffeinated and I'm coherent. So I drink my coffee in the morning and chop the onions and get it all in the pot. Because although I have really, really good kids, when they're full, when it's the 4 p.m. witching hour, they're cranky. And it wasn't safe for me to be chopping vegetables with a toddler attached to my knee and trying to figure out the homework schedule and that kind of stuff. And so in the beginning, when I had tiny babies in the house, that was their cranky time. And so I needed to hold them and rock them, and I couldn't be sauteing vegetables. And now that they're older, and I have a high schooler and a middle schooler, and then the baby is starting kindergarten this year, the after school and evening hours are even more hectic. We've got after school sports, PTA meetings, soccer, all of this stuff in order to be a typical American family, you sort of have to do, because PE doesn't cut it for athletics. They have to do something. And in order to do the something, it's out of the house and we're driving back and forth. Yes. It's a challenge. And so you hear from everybody about how important the family dinner is. And I absolutely agree with it. But I think we have to shift what our viewpoint of the family dinner is. And that if my 5-year-old is hungry at 5 o'clock, but my husband's not home yet and her sisters aren't home, feed her. Sit down with her. At least we're all eating the same food, even though it's not necessarily sitting down at 6 and sharing our day and the iconic Norman Rockwell family. At least we're eating the same food and we're sharing that experience and having the crockpot cooking essentially all day when I'm out and about, I'm at work, I'm doing things, and we're coming home to a fully prepared dinner. It gives this sense of peace and tranquility. You can have the worst day ever, but when you walk in the house and you smell that dinner's done, it's just a relief that, oh gosh, there's one less thing.
Yeah, totally. Big less thing.
Brilliant.
And you're not ordering out for pizza.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right?
Well, it's interesting because as early newlyweds, it was so important for us to stick to a budget. And I'm slightly vain, so I didn't necessarily want to be eating out every night because that's not good for my waistline. And I'm Scottish, so I don't want to buy new clothes. So it helps with time management, but then also budget management. And so I really think in a wild and crazy way that you're saving both time and money, and the way families and life and all of this stuff that we're trying to achieve simply by using this $40 machine. So it's kind of awesome.
It's a very interesting perspective.
Yeah.
It impacts so many areas.
I've had an awful lot of time to think about this.
Well, being an author of 2 books on the subject, I should say.
One thing I wonder about, though, like, for instance, I spent 11 or 12 years as a public school teacher, and I had to be out the door at 7, or in some cases, depending on, there were a couple of years when I was working further away, it was closer to 6:30. And I know a lot of my colleagues were out the door at 5:45 or 6 in the morning. I mean, how do you include that?
So in my former life, I ran preschool and child care centers, and one of them was for homeless shelter. And so I needed to be there bright and early to unlock the door and let the families in. And so I understand that. And so what I found is in the evening, prep, or do as much prep as you can on the weekends. And I've sort of done on the side of my website, I have called freezer meals, or I call them slow cooker TV dinners. And so when I buy my food in bulk, like at Costco or Sam's Club, I have to already put them in separate family-sized portions in like Ziploc bags. And so while I'm doing that, and you're putting the stew meat in the plastic bag, chop an onion, throw it in there, then put in some sauce and seasonings, and then freeze it. You now have this fully contained block of food. In the evening before, take it out of the freezer, put it in the fridge so it starts to thaw. And then in the morning, all you need to do is plunk it out and push the button and walk away. The newer crock pots on the market are programmable. And if you are in the market for a new crock pot, I would highly recommend doing the programmable ones, which means that when your food is done cooking, it flips over to a warm setting. So even if you're out of the house for 10 to 12 hours, but your chicken recipe calls for 6 hours, it's okay because it flips over to this buffet setting, very similar to a caterer's, where your food is hot and ready, but it's not continuing to cook. And that's what I would recommend.
Oh, that solves a problem I've had.
Yeah. Well, yeah, the older school ones are low, medium, high, or low, high, warm, something like that. It's just not practical to leave your food fully cooking all day for 12 hours. But this way you can set it, follow the recipe instructions, and then it will just keep it warm and ready to go.
That's great.
Is there a size of a crock pot that makes sense for, like
I think for most families, and anyone over a 1 or 2 person household, I would recommend a 6-quart, only because it's the most prevalent. They're all over the place. You can pick them up at Sam's Club, Walmart, Costco, Target. They're everywhere. Bed Bath & Beyond, usually around the holidays, has loads of them. But what's nice about the 6-quart is you don't write, I write. You can create all of the recipes, and if you have a smaller amount of food that you're making that day, or you want to make a recipe for a 2-quart or a 4-quart, all you need to do is insert an oven-safe dish into the slow cooker.
Really?
And your food is nestled a little more. So a Pyrex or a Corningware, something that you would already throw in the oven, all you do then is put that inside the insert. You don't need to add even any extra water. Put your food in there and then cover the crock pot the way you would normally. And your food is nestled and insulated and won't cook as fast. And that's the issue with the crock pots, is they're designed, and the recipes are designed to fit 2/3 to 3/4 of the way full. So if you find that you're not filling your pot up that much, that's when you know you need to put the dish in. And
that makes sense.
Yeah, it's funny because I'll get reader comments saying like, well, I made your chicken and it cooked in 2 hours, and you said it would cook in 6 hours. And I said, well, that recipe's for 4 pounds of chicken. How much did you put in? They're like, oh, I put in 2 breasts. I'm like, well, it's going to cook faster.
That makes sense. That makes sense.
Right, exactly.
Right.
It's going to cook faster. Wow. That really, when you talk about that 6-quart one, that really, and putting in an insert, it really, gives you a lot more choices.
It does.
It's really smart.
And then I go kind of over the top with, if I have smaller different ramekins, I'll put corn in one and potatoes in the other and lay stuff on top. So I like layered dinners. I also wrap things in foil packets, very similar to kind of campfire meals that you would put on a campfire or in Dutch ovens. You can use that in the slow cooker. I'll steam fish that way in a foil packet with special seasonings, or not special seasonings, fish seasonings. Nothing is what was the word proprietary with me?
Right.
That kind of stuff. But so fish steams beautifully in 12 hours, 2 hours on high. I wouldn't leave fish for 12 hours. But what's nice about the fish packets is I will create them the night before or that morning, and then they're in the fridge. I come home, plop them in the crock pot at 5 or so, go do the evening things that we need to do. And so in our family, it's gymnastics and soccer and swimming and that kind of stuff. And then 2 hours later, your fish is ready.
That's awesome.
Lots of great tips.
I know.
This is really good.
I love the crock pot. Another thing I like to do in the crock pot is I make bone broth. So I haven't bought store-bought chicken broth in years now since I learned about bone broth, which is very exciting to me because you roast a chicken at night and put the carcass in there and your seasonings and water, and you leave it you can leave it up to 48 hours actually.
On warm or something?
Mm-hmm.
Really?
Yep. And so it's a perfect thing to overnight or have it continue in there until your next meal of the day, or if you want to add a frozen, already cooked something meal you've got in the freezer, you can make a soup easily. So that's been something I've really enjoyed too. It's bone broth is so healthy, as I'm sure you know.
Right. Well, and when you're creating broth yourself, it's incredibly economical when you start looking at how much per ounce they're charging for broth, and you can do an awful lot. And you're right. I keep reading about bone broth. I'm gonna have to talk to you a bit more later on why it's so good, and it's not just this new trendy thing. But people are ordering bone broth like it's just walk down the street instead of Starbucks. They're sipping on these.
Right. Yep, you can order it now. You can order it online. Stores are, I think I've heard some stores are carrying it now, but it's really just because you're it's in for so long. It's just drawing out all the minerals and all the nutrients from the bone. The bones are they're like mush, when you're done. And then some cultures would eat that as well. I haven't gone quite that far. It really don't taste that good, but you could. So you're really just able to draw out everything from the bones.
You just pour it through some cheesecloth or something, and
yeah, I have a little strainer.
Yeah,
I pour it into a dish from the strainer.
And is the calcium actually leached from the bones, and so you're getting this high injection of calcium as well?
Yes. Yeah.
That's neat.
Yeah, it's pretty
That's
cool.
really neat.
And if you're using a chicken, obviously that's been pasture raised, that's ideal, of course. But I studied Weston Price, who was a dentist who studied cultures who had perfect dental health, and one of the common dietary factors that were in each of the groups that he studied was animal fat, and their big thing was bone broth. It was known as this healing tradition, and so I got really into it. And like you said, even just from an economical perspective, it tastes so much better. Like, wow, it's so much better. On seasonings and it is very economical. So I'm really excited to talk to you because I think the crock pot is genius. Really, crock pot and for me a Vitamix blender for smoothies.
Yeah.
Yes.
You can eat everything that way.
Color happy.
Yeah.
All those things. Yeah.
Stephanie, the other thing is you have a book about being an organized mom. I would love to know what are the obstacles that get in the way of being an organized mom, and how can we overcome some of those?
I know the obstacles.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting because I have been thinking an awful lot about this, and I think of organizations similarly to a diet or a fitness program, that you're all really, really gung-ho for a week or two, and then it's either starting to work or it seems like, I don't know if I really want to do this for the rest of my life, so you give up. But the fact is any organization program, probably similarly to any diet or any fitness program, if you just stuck with it, it would get easier and easier and easier, and then become second nature. And that's how, at the end of the line, you have success. But I think moms in general sort of kick ourselves in the foot, or pinch ourselves, or shoot ourselves. What's the term? Shoot ourselves in the foot. Because come back to school season or come New Year's, we have such huge, enormous ideas and goals, and we decide we're going to revamp everything, and it's just not practical in the long term. And so my suggestion would be teeny tiny baby steps, get your family on board, and just slowly start shifting things, making rules such as, from now on, the jacket and backpack don't go here. They go here. And I've created a section for you. And just like at school, you put your shoes and your jacket and your backpack away. And just tiny things, rather than unveiling enormous long chore charts and we're going to do this. And if we don't, then we're not going to do anything. And that's what I think happens is the ideas are huge, and when they don't follow through exactly how you have it pictured in your head, which is unrealistic, because what we have pictured in our head is HGTV and Real Simple Magazine, which is not real life. That is not real. They do not have 3 children in there. So And so that would be my suggestion. And in the daily planner, this is the planner that I created. And it's funny because I actually started working on it before the crockpot stuff. I used to write for a newspaper and for a parenting magazine. And so I liked that idea of helping moms in as many different ways that I could. And so, and I like checklists and I like boxes. And so I thought, well, what if there was a planner that instead of it being completely blank, it actually told you what to do. So in September, it says, let's start thinking about Christmas. Let's start thinking about the holidays, and rather than the last minute rush. And so that's what Totally Together came from. It came from me wishing somebody would just tell me what to do, because I'm already trying to do so many things. I don't want another something I have to think about. So that's.
That's a great idea. And I used to be a registered nurse, and in the morning when we would listen to report on our patients, we would put little circles and boxes with the text after it, like, changes dressing at 10 a.m., pills at 12 noon or whatever. We would check the boxes. So I always have little circles that
it's funny because I have readers who tell me that that the checking is just so therapeutic that they will write down things they've already done. Just
I do it all the time.
Yeah. Very satisfying.
Well, I have to know that I accomplished something.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then I think also in the business world and the corporate world, hour by hour what you have to do, and you have this sense of accomplishment. You have a boss or you have a coworker telling you, you know what, you did that well. You rocked that presentation, or yes, you submitted whatever it is you need to do at the time. But regardless of whether you work outside of the house or in the house, or you're fully focused on staying home, I think just humans need some sort of external feedback, and yes, and the pat on the back. And so I think the checklists accomplish that. And I'm finding now that that I have a great husband. We have a really good tag team, but in general, moms are still kind of in charge of most domestic things. So we can delegate, but really when somebody walks into the house and it's really clean or really messy, regardless of whether or not it's a stay-at-home dad or stay-at-home mom or working parent, it's unfortunately still in today's advanced age, the pressure's on mom.
Yeah. It is.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
It's so true.
So,
and I think just by acknowledging that and realizing, if the car breaks down, it's not my fault, it's his fault. So, which is totally sexist.
Yeah.
That's
And I
true.
have a great husband.
Owning that and knowing that's what it is. So
Yeah, I think all of our husbands are very helpful, really. I always think of my husband and I, we're pretty interchangeable. That's what we do, but I totally agree with you. At the end of the day, there's still that feeling that mom's going to be the one taking care of all that stuff. So,
Right.
So it's important to be organized for sure. And I love your ideas, and those are really good tips. And I've read too that when you do check things off or you cross off your list that you accomplish something, it actually releases endorphins in your body.
Yep.
So there
Wow.
really is this kind of thing that happens.
I like that.
And as you just said, both of you, the pat on the back or knowing I accomplished something is way more important than we give credibility to. It's like celebrating, yes, I did this, yes, I did that. Where you hear people say, I love doing the dishes because, it's a task that I know what I need to do, and there's something very visible at the end that's been accomplished, right?
Yeah.
So, and it's not a great task, I don't think, to do myself. I don't like to do it, but I do feel that, like when I'm done, you go,
Yeah.
oh, look at that. It looks so good. Yeah. So it makes sense that if we incorporated that concept into every area of our life, or as many as we can, we'd have that same feeling.
yeah.
Right.
Definitely.
and what's hard is I think in general we feel like all of this should be easy, and it's not. It's not. I mean,
breastfeeding.
having to think of all of the things that are running through our heads every day in order to keep the house and the children clothed and fed and on time. And I don't think this school really gives us enough benefit of the doubt of, my gosh, maybe they're here at 8:03 because of something I did, not something they did. So I mean, it's difficult. And I think acknowledging that it's difficult, and it's difficult for everybody, and the people who make it seem effortless are working really, really, really hard. Same, and I'm going to use the fitness example again. Someone who's in really, really good shape, sometimes the sort of brush off notation is, oh, well, she has good genes. Well, maybe it's because she eats really well and she gets up at 5 and while she's waiting for her coffee to heat up in the microwave for 30 seconds, she's doing squats. So you never know. But that whole image that gets passed around online all the time of the duck calm, but she's paddling rapidly underwater. And
Right.
that's, I think, the season of life that happens when you have young children in the house. And it's a season. And before you know it, they will be gone. They really, really, truly will be gone. And so I think you do the best you can, and pat yourself on the back.
That's right.
Absolutely.
That's great.
That's great. Stephanie, this is a wonderful way to end, actually. And this
Already?
is yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I know. So this is really terrific. I mean, we've gotten some great tips for how to, get yourself ready to cook and relieve the stress late in the afternoon.
Save money.
Save money. We've also learned that how important it is to just be a family together at the dinner table, whether that's in shifts or not. I know that happens sometimes. And we've also gotten some great tips on organizing yourself and how important it is to have a checklist. So thank you so much for sharing all of this with us. Yeah.
Thank you.
Tell everybody where we can find you, and go ahead and tell us things that you would like us to buy, because resources.
Yeah, definitely.
Go ahead and tell us.
Sure. My online home is stephanieodea.com, and that's STEPHANIEODEA.com. And the slow cooking information is all on there, along with the organization tips. In general, I think if you're just starting out with getting to know your slow cooker and trying to have your family run a bit better, my first suggestion would be meal planning. And I do have ready-to-go meal plans for sale on the site, and they're $2.49 each, $2.49. And what you get with that is an itemized grocery list and 5 recipes to get through the work week. Awesome. And I found that 5 for crockpot meals works the best, because they tend to have extra food for leftovers. And then usually once a week, most families order takeout or get invited out for dinner. And so that's why there's 5. But I think knowing at the beginning of the week that all of the ingredients are in the house for 5 nights of meals. It's a huge relief. And then also having the recipe cards itemized and ready to go. If your husband or your older children are up, they can follow the recipe and dump it all in. The hard part is getting the food in the house. Once your freezer is stocked and the food is ready to go in the pantry, crockpot recipes are pretty darn easy. And I'm not one who likes to cook before I cook. So I'm not interested in browning meat and frying stuff up at 5 a.m. So I'm dump and go.
Dump and go. I love it. Dump and go.
Do you have vegetarian options?
I do.
Yeah.
So because we happen to be a gluten-free family, everything on the site is gluten-free, and I do have vegetarian, vegan, paleo options and all of that good stuff. Along with family and toddler favorites. So
nicely broken down. That's awesome.
Wonderful resources. We'll make sure we link to your website in our show notes and give everybody a chance to get there and find some stuff. So Stephanie, thank you so much for being here with us today. And just a reminder, viewers and listeners, we are the Mighty Married Moms. I'm Debbie Owen.
I'm Wendy Williams.
Linda Tighe.
And we look forward to seeing you at our next show. Be sure to check out our follow-up episode, where we're going to talk about what we just talked about and give you some more ideas too. And we'll see you next time. Please share these episodes with your family and friends, and go to iTunes and leave us a rating and review, because that helps us and it helps you also. So thanks everybody for being here. We'll see you next time.
Take care.
You.
Thanks again, Stephanie.
Bye.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Mighty Married Moms. Tune in twice a week on Mondays and Thursdays to meet fascinating and inspiring guests who will help you create the life you've always wanted.
You can find these episodes and special gifts just for you at mightymarriedmoms.com, as well as a link to our Facebook community,
where we continue the conversation around the kitchen table. Please also help share the love by leaving a review on iTunes. We'll see you next time.